You know the feeling. It's 3 in the morning, you're wide awake, and your brain plays the same awkward conversation on a relentless, exhausting loop. We often call this worrying, but from a psychological standpoint, worry and rumination are distinct. Worry looks forward, trying to anticipate and solve future problems. Rumination looks backward. It is a passive, repetitive fixation on what went wrong, without generating any actual solutions. While your mind spins, your body reacts as if you are under physical threat. This thought loop keeps your fight or flight systems simmering, flooding your system with stress hormones and completely draining your energy. You feel like you are actively working through a problem. In reality, you are trapped in a self-reinforcing mental cage that prevents you from moving on. It seems logical to assume that if your mind is racing with self-reflection, the parts of your brain responsible for processing those thoughts must be working in overdrive. That internal narrative, the daydreaming and self-reflection, is driven by a system called the default mode network. Here is a map of regional cerebral blood flow in depressed patients compared to healthy individuals. Red areas show the default mode network. Notice the lack of blue spots overlapping them, meaning no increased activity. So why can't depressed individuals turn off the brooding? The answer isn't found by measuring the total volume of brain activity. The root of this endless overthinking lies in a hidden miswiring deep within the brain. To solve this mystery, neuroscientists stopped asking how much the default mode network was working and started looking at which other brain regions it was communicating with. They found their target right behind your forehead, the subgenual prefrontal cortex, or SGPFC. This small cluster of tissue is the brain's center for emotional withdrawal, sadness, and guilt. In a healthy brain, your reflection center and your sadness center generally mind their own business. They operate independently. Recognizing the isolation of these two networks explains how a perfectly normal ability to self-reflect can suddenly mutate into a self-destructive loop. Think of the default mode network like elemental sodium. It's a completely normal element, but its behavior changes radically depending on what it binds to. If you bond sodium with chlorine, you get harmless table salt, the equivalent of learning from a mistake. But drop that exact same sodium into water, and you create a volatile, caustic reaction. The sodium never changed, its partner did. Look at this scan of a depressed brain. The yellow highlights map an abnormal neural bridge. The default mode network forms a hyper-connected bond with the SGPFC. Because this is a connectivity problem, initial overall activity scans appeared completely normal. Once this bridge is built, a downward spiral starts in seconds. A minor trigger, an unreturned text, activates this hyper-connected circuit. Your default mode network attempts to do its job and reflect on that minor trigger. But because of the abnormal bond, the thought is instantly flooded with a wave of heavy, paralyzing guilt from the SGPFC. This sudden flood of negative emotion trips the amygdala, your brain's threat detection alarm system. As the alarm rings, your logical prefrontal cortex is effectively locked out of the process. You are left mentally and physically paralyzed. Your brain is trapped in a biological echo chamber, endlessly replaying the guilt, sealed off from the circuits that could provide a logical way out. Understanding that rumination is a structural miswiring and not a permanent character flaw entirely changes how we approach treatment. This is where targeted interventions come in, like rumination-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, or TMS, which uses precise magnetic fields to stimulate brain regions. The goal of these treatments is not to simply cheer you up. They are mechanically designed to disrupt, weaken, and eventually sever the hyperactive bond between your reflection center and your emotional withdrawal center. By breaking this physical bond, your brain restores its ability to self-reflect and process memories normally, without automatically plunging into an emotional crash. Even without clinical therapy, there are ways to manually interrupt this circuit in the middle of a daily spiral by forcing your brain to switch networks. You have a system called the task-positive network. It is a brain circuit that only activates when you focus intensely on a complex, demanding external task, like doing a math puzzle or navigating a difficult physical environment. Because the brain has limited resources, activating the task-positive network acts as a biological switch. It naturally suppresses the default mode network, instantly starving the rumination loop of the energy it needs to keep spinning. The next time you find yourself staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., remember the mechanics of your own mind. Those intrusive looping thoughts are not an objective truth. They are the byproduct of a temporary crossed wire in the brain, a toxic bond that you have the power to break.